Steve and I had worked together in the past. We did The Night Of together. He told me he was developing limited series based on the Patricia Highsmith novel. I was like, wow, that sounds great. And he was like, yeah, I'm really interested in what that story was, and would you be interested in writing the music? And I was like, Steve, anything that you do, I will want to be a part of. One of the things he asked me was, have you seen the movie? And I said no, because I still haven't seen the movie. I know about the movie, I've seen clips of the movie, but I'd never seen the movie. And he said, good, because we're not telling the story that way. It's a different take on the novel. I picked up the book and I read the book, and then I started sketching some ideas, and my thought about early 1960s Italy was this sort of romantic sort of thing, and I started writing a theme, and I sent it to him, and he was like, this is really great, this is really nice, but we're not telling a romantic story. It's a noir thriller about a psychopath.
Steve personally examines everything that's going on in every department in a way that I think most people can't. Just in terms of our sound work at the final, he was checking out every pre-dub group, and occasionally he'd go, okay, what makes up those sounds? And then we'd go in there and we'd check out each sound that was there. And we didn't do this all the time, but we did it more than I've ever done it with any other filmmaker.
He's such an extraordinary filmmaker, and he has so detailed and so focused in making it right.
He truly digests everything that's being put in front of him and then resynthesizes it in a way and tweaks it, and he's bringing the continuity to the whole product because he's engaged with every element of it.
It was really about the orchestration of the themes. It could be really super lush and romantic because 1960s Italy, you sort of get that, but the way he shot it and the tone that he wanted to take was really to focus more on this thriller aspect of it and the fact that he's quite crazy. And a lot of those themes I sort of turned on their head. And the most interesting part of the direction that I got from him is once I started writing, I started writing in episode 1 and episode 2, and I sent it to him and he was like, okay, this is all working really nicely, this is all really great, but what if you were to write episode 7? Go to episode 7 and write episode 7 and see how that might inform episodes 1, 2, and 3. And I was like, okay, I never thought about doing it like that. And I did that. I wrote episode 7, most importantly, the end cue for episode 7. And all of a sudden I understood what he wanted and what he meant and how that affected what I then turned around and started writing for episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Non serve, ce le faccio.
Sicuro?
Sì.
Secondo piano, a sinistra.
Grazie.
A lei.
Jeff's music for the show definitely evolved in a similar way that our effects tracks did over the course of working on the show, where one of his first concerns he wanted to emphasize, he was really into, was the ambience of the show, the feel of the environments of all these spaces, because they shoot wide a lot. Some of these places are not particularly populated. The density of dialogue and music in the show in certain areas is not typical of a television show. So keeping the world alive and giving a sense of life and keeping the narrative moving forward with the ambient sound was important to him, and something I think he knew was going to be a long-term project that we were going to have to develop over time.
I thought about how the music was going to play in space and out of space and what that was going to be like in terms of how I was treating instrumentation, but so much of that was worked on the dub stage. So much of that was, how does this music fit into this scene and how are we going to make it a part of the fabric of the scene and not have it feel like score? And score can sometimes feel like this 30,000 foot view. How do we make some of this music really feel like it's integral into the space?
Wherever I could try to accentuate foreground stuff, particularly in wider shots. I would try to do that with something that would bring attention, a little attention to this perspective that you had. A lot of times to help emphasize this kind of sense of that we're observing Tom or judging Tom or something like that in the wider shots especially, and also to just help create more of a sense of life outside of the frame in certain areas.
And I feel like we did that a lot. We even did that in episode 1 where he's going back to his apartment. You hear a saxophone playing in the background, and that's playing along with my score. It really worked really well, how score and diegetic music was going to sort of come together to really make you feel like, oh, I feel like I'm in the streets of New York. It really feels that way.
I think a lot of it was trying to really tightly sync the Foley with the production, so they supported each other in a way where it became kind of imperceptible where one started and the other ended, and then making as much use as we could out of perspective and the acoustics of the spaces, these sort of fixed shots that last for a long time, and when you shift to another shot, you really want to emphasize that change sonically. And it was fun to hear the final recorded score at the mix because there was a fair amount of it I hadn't heard in its final form before, and it was really great. I thought the score for the show brought like an emotional thread that really united a lot of different ideas in the show in a way that I don't think that our sound could have on its own. And it was really exciting to hear his score. It was wonderful.
I tend to want to write music that is really about what a character is feeling and not what a character is doing. And the entire show is about being in his head. The entire show is about what's happening with Tom and what's he doing and how's he going to get out of this one. You really have these moments where you're with Tom and you kind of see this transformation with every single episode as he's turning sort of more and more evil, so to speak, in realizing what he's going to do in order to keep this life that he wants. Perfect example is episode 3 when they're in the boat and there's this really long sequence that has no music, no dialogue, it's just sound, and you're really just feeling what's going on the boat and what's going on in Tom's head, really. And there's music prior to it, you know something's gonna happen, but you didn't need music to tell you what was happening.
And after the murder happens, it's like that's where the sort of the hard work begins for Tom, because he maybe didn't fully think through all the steps he was going to have to go through to try to get out of the situation cleanly.
But you did kind of need music at the end of that scene where now you're looking down on the boat that he has sunk. There's a feeling there.
Because you had this long period of time without score, and it's really meaningful when it comes back in. So Steve and Jeff's choices about when they're going to reintroduce music were really important and really, really well chosen.
And at the end of each one of the episodes, you really have these moments where you're with Tom and you kind of see this transformation with every single episode as he's turning sort of more and more evil, so to speak, in realizing what he's gonna do in order to keep this life that he wants.
I'm really proud of the work that everybody did and that we were able to pull it off.
Every time I would see a cut or every time I would see something that Steve sent me, it just kept getting better and better every time. So with every iteration of every cut, I was like, oh right, he made that better. I thought it was great before, now it's even better, which just made me want to do better. It's that thing where you want to play tennis with somebody who's better than you so you can get better. Making anything with Steve is the same way. It's like he's just so great at it that it makes, I think, everybody work better.
And I thought that everyone on our sound crew, everyone in the picture department and Jeff were really all amazing collaborators, and communication that we had with each other over the course of the show really worked to everyone's benefit and the show's benefit. I'm proud of the work we're able to do together.